As of June 4th, 2019, the rules for traveling to Cuba are changing. We're here to update you, tell you what you need to know if you're going, if you can go, right now. Hi, I'm Bill from cruisehabit.com. As mentioned, June 4th, 2019, the rules for Cuba travel are changing for American citizens at least, and this impacts cruises that leave from the United States and travel to Cuba. For the last couple of years, lines have been allowed to sail to the island nation of Cuba, and this was a change from policy for a long time in the United States. This was a change through what they call OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, and it allowed for what they called people-to-people education travel. In other words, where you're there to meet people rather than just be a tourist on the beach, right? Well, today it was announced that the Federal Register will see a change published tomorrow, and that date is important. We'll get to that in just a moment. And this change will remove the people-to-people allowance for visits, making it so that Americans cannot easily visit Cuba, whether by cruise ship or any other means for that matter. This is being done by an amendment to the Cuban Asset Control Regulations, CACR, in line with the U.S. President's update to Cuba policies. Now, there is a grandfathering. If you're already booked on one of these Cuba sailings, or even if we're not talking cruises for a moment, even if you're flying, there are ways, if you're already booked, you may still be able to go. It depends though, right? So let's say if you're booked on a trip in 3 weeks, you know what? Check with the cruise line, check with the airline, everything. But there's a good chance you'll be okay because they're saying, hey, if you've already booked travel, that's okay. However, if you've booked a trip maybe a year and a half from now, you'll really want to keep tuned to the cruise lines, your travel agent, and of course, right here at cruisehabit.com, because maybe that trip to Havana isn't going to work out. Why? Well, if cruise lines don't have that many people on the sailing, if they've only got, 100 people booked on that sailing because it's really far out or something, they may not want to spend the day in Cuba just so that only a small number of Americans can get off the ship. So you're going to want to stay tuned, but it does seem clear that at least as of right now, trips booked going forward, not going to be able to go to Cuba, at least not under that person-to-person thing. We'll see if anything changes, if cruise lines find a way around this, if people end up fighting the government on this, if the government changes their mind, we will find out. So it's a developing story. Anything could change, and it's a real big story, not only if you were planning on going, but imagine lines like Virgin Voyages, which we've covered a lot on cruisehabit.com and on the Cruise Habit podcast. A huge chunk of their itineraries are supposed to visit Cuba, so that could be really big for them. MSC has the Harmonia, which sails 7-night cruises out of South Florida every single week now, visiting Cuba. There are other lines too, Victory. So this is a real big change. Of course, I'm not an attorney. I don't work in immigration law or anything like that. You'll want to stay tuned to find out what the deal is. Now, if you are going, maybe you're leaving tomorrow, or maybe in a few months, and that trip turns out to go as you've planned so far, make sure that you check out our Cruising Cuba series over at cruisehabit.com. You can go to cruisehabit.com/cruisingcuba. We explain the documentation, paperwork, the visas, how that process works. It's really simple. We go over things like changing currency, how that works, how you can keep in touch in Cuba, cell phones don't work, or how to pay for stuff, credit cards, not U.S. credit cards especially, but most credit cards, it's a little bit of a challenge. So make sure you check that out and stay tuned to cruisehabit.com for all things cruise news and information. Thanks.